I got a question for you. I want you to see if you can guess this about the house.
Okay.
You thought Baby Driver was a more expensive production than it was. You thought it was up in the $70 million range when it was only $34 million.
Incredible.
Take a guess what the budget of the house was. Sans marketing. Take a guess.
Considering...
I just found out when you were talking just a minute ago. I want you to know. Take a guess.
Okay, so I noticed a weird thing about this movie at the credits. This is not a spoiler. And it leads into the answer. The executive producer for this movie was Stephen Mnuchin. And if there are any politic junkies out there like I am, and we're not going to talk about politics, but I'm just saying if that name rings a bell, that's because Stephen Mnuchin is in 2017, the current Treasury Secretary of the United States of America.
Really?
I'm not kidding.
That's interesting. I missed it. I didn't know the name until a minute ago.
In the Trump administration, and we're not talking about politics, not at all. But in the Trump administration, the Treasury Secretary is a movie producer, and he has produced dozens and dozens of movies, including The House.
Wow.
That just caught me off guard. But okay. Budget for this movie. Is it under or over 100 million?
Oh, it's way under. It's way under. Yeah.
Okay, no then 50.
40 million.
40 million.
Which I'm very surprised. And there's a big, I think next week I want to talk on the show because I want to do a little bit more research and I want to dive headfirst into it now. I'm going to talk about how over budgeting next week is hurting Hollywood big time. Over budgeting movies. We're going to talk about that.
It's a huge, that is such a massive thing that decides the fate of movies.
And it's the reason why, I would argue right now, it's the reason why 4 movies this summer alone have bombed. We're going to talk about that next week. We're going to try, I swear to God, we're going to stay focused on The House here. This movie, okay? Normally what you do when you write a script, in my opinion, because I've been working a little bit on it, not going to call myself a professional, even up to the level of the writers of this film, Brendan O'Brien or Andrew J. Cohen, who's also the director. Usually what you do when you write a script is you draft. And then what you do is you go over and you look through it, you take out some stuff, you add to it, you go back. You don't film the first draft. And that's what I think happened here. I think that they drafted a movie. I think it was a spec script originally. They drafted it, and then they decided, let's go for it, and let's decorate it a little bit. Let's give Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler, 2 of the biggest names in comedy, and let us get them to sell this movie. And it is and this movie is a real half-assed casino ripoff or parody, if you will. And it's surprisingly bad, I would say. Surprisingly bad. It revolves around, I'll do the plot since you did Baby Driver. It revolves around Scott and Kate Johansson, played by Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler, candidate for one of the weirdest movie couples of the year, if not the weirdest, I think, who are trying to put their daughter through college. She's an only child, and they don't have enough money, and they don't have enough money to put her through college, so they decide to team up with their gambling addict friend Frank, played by Jason Mantzoukas, to create an underground casino in their basement. And they go about doing that to try to pay for their daughter's tuition and to try to get Frank out of debt so he can go back with his wife. And on top, there's this very sleazy, crooked council member played by who is like trying to infiltrate the gambling ring as well. You talk about this, Dom. You talk about this one. I mean,
your feelings for this movie are unabashed.
Yeah, I'm wearing them on my sleeve here. I want to know what you thought.
I had a good time. I had a really good time with this movie.
You really did.
And that's the dichotomy of it. This movie absolutely critically hinges on whether or not your mentality and whether or not you like Will Ferrell or Amy Poehler or that kind of brand of comedy. You could also extend it to, Tina Fey and the kind of that 90s SNL family of actors and scriptwriters and whatnot. And here's the thing. Because you mentioned Casino, which we talked about last week.
For required viewing.
Week, right? And you love that movie. You love Scorsese and you love De Niro and Pesci and all that. And you worship that movie because you called it, a required viewing. And to call this The House a dedicated casino parody is giving it way too much credit. There are like jabs, I guess kind of a pun, but there are kind of jabs at Casino, like specifically the interrogation or like the what do you call it? The interrogation scene, I guess you call it, where there's like where they're trying to cut off the dude's finger or whatever, beat him up because he was cheating. But I don't know. I think you're putting way too much pressure on this movie, or way too much, or you're like, you went into this movie with a horrible mentality, or maybe like you were offended before you even went in. You know what I'm talking about? It's one of those movies. I just went in, okay, I personally enjoy Will Ferrell, not on a higher level. I don't think he's a comedic genius. I just think he's really good at what he does. And if you just appreciate him for what he is, you can just have fun.
Contrary to what I think you're saying, I did not go in here with my knife sharpened with this.
Really?
No, here's the thing. There is a and this is why I didn't just say it to come up with the zinger that they shot the first draft of this movie. I didn't just come up with the zinger.
I actually agree with that 100%.
No, here's the problem I have with this thing, okay? Is that there is a biting satire about perceived notions of middle class safety embedded in the script of this movie. And it comes out early in the scene when they're at the town hall meeting and the town has to decide whether or not to give Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler's daughter scholarship money or to build a town water park. And therein lies ability and capability and even potential to be at least not a full-blown South Park level satire, but at least have notions of that. And it never takes off. And before you think I'm crazy for expecting something like that, the film was co-written and directed by Andrew J. Cohen, who wrote both Neighbors movies, Neighbors and Neighbors 2 Sorority Rise, and the Zac Efron Seth Rogen films. Neighbors 2 had a lot of depth to it. I mean, correct, you can I don't know if you saw it. Criticize me if you want. Neighbors 2 had a lot of interesting commentary about sexism. On top of being a hilarious movie, had a lot of good comedy about sexism, or commentary about sexism, had good commentary about sororities versus fraternities, and it was very interesting. It was satirical. It was funny. It was better than the first. So to see Cohen opt for something that's so bottom of the barrel, this movie feels like a collection of bloopers and outtakes at the end of the end of the comedy movie credits. And the worst part is it actually has outtakes at the end of the credits. You know what I mean? I was very surprised. I was very surprised that, like, especially after that, like, opening, how this movie goes nowhere and feels so in almost inept the whole way through.
Wow.
I would say.
Look, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to give this movie a high rating either, but
I can't believe you weren't completely sold on Rough Night, yet you'll back this. I mean, at least Rough Night. At least Rough Night. There was a lot of like comic capability here. I think Will Ferrell has been on a losing streak since Anchorman 2. I really do.
Well, here's the thing. Again, Anchorman 2 is a better movie. I'll give you that much.
It is a better movie.
Because it actually has...
It's not bad.
Underneath the Will Ferrell typical comedy, layer of comedy, right? There is like actually a pretty good biting satire of the news industry in Anchorman 2,
Absolutely.
which was completely absent in Anchorman 1. And
the commentary saves Anchorman 2.
And I think that just kind of pops up and surprises us, right? And I wasn't expecting that at all. It's like, oh, if that's there, that's cool. I still think it's a fairly funny movie because, again, it's a Will Ferrell vehicle, and I'm okay with that. And I guess I'm trying to justify in my defense of kind of my riding hard on Rough Night, which is the Scarlett Johansson, I guess you could say Kate McKinnon movie. It was kind of shared among them, mostly
Jillian Bell too, yeah.
Yeah, Jillian Bell. There's a lot of names I should know on that movie because I'm riding hard on Rough Night more than The House because The House, I had the expectations were so low, whereas Rough Night, I suddenly saw like potential there. Here's the thing, I didn't know anything about Rough Night.
No, you did.
I didn't know anything about it at all, which is why I didn't have any expectation. But when I saw like what was there, I saw expectation, right? I suddenly saw like
potential.
Potential. That's the word I'm looking for.
You are.
I saw potential, and then they just kind of squandered it. Here in The House, no expectations. Nothing developed, and we're good.
You went in, and this is very fitting. You went in with I would think the same level of like contentment you would probably trying a new fast food restaurant.
Exactly.
Yes, indeed.
It's like trying
which maybe you'd be happy. Which maybe you'd be happy with.
Yeah, and like honestly, like the first 2 minutes of this movie perfectly sum up the tone of the rest of the movie. The first 2 minutes of the movie are just them like visiting the college. Immediately, no no characterization at all. Like they're just going straight to the plot. They're already on the college campus visiting it on a tour day, which is supposed to drive the entire plot of the
Which
movie.
I like because it saved a good 20 minutes.
Exactly.
This movie is surprisingly short, and I say that because this is the type of movie that like could go on for another 25 minutes and be over long. Where it doesn't. It at least has the restraint to recognize how thin its premise is. You know what I mean? It at least has that sort of cognizance. I did like, you know what I appreciated in this film was Lennon Parham, she was Martha in the film. She was kind of the one who kept complaining about the pot.
She was funny.
I liked her a lot, and I like Jason Mendoza. He was good. I thought Ferrell was lazy. I thought for his brand of comedy, I thought he was lazy. This is another, like I said, this is another loser movie of his. Because I didn't care. I didn't love Anchorman 2, like I just said. Get Hard is dreadful. Get Hard was dreadful. Daddy's Home was bad, and I'm dreading the sequel.
What about Other Guys?
The other guys I liked.
There you
that's
go.
why
Okay.
I'm saying post.
Then
That's
we're
why I'm
good.
saying
We
post.
cool, man. We cool. Because if you were gonna bash on Other Guys, I would have left this radio station right now. Because Other Guys was good.
I ain't gonna hate on Other Guys. I liked Other Guys
Yeah.
quite a bit, and that's another thing too. That's another reason why I don't like The House is because I've seen the best. I've seen how great Will Ferrell can be. I really have. The Other Guys, one of his best movies. People gush about Step Brothers, understandably in a lot of respects. I think The Other Guys is a lot better.
Me too.
I think that's
do
a
agree.
lot better of a movie. Now, the thing, like I said, going on to it too, and The Other Guys, I think, kind of gotten eclipsed a little bit too, just after, because it was about only I think about a year or two ahead of 21 Jump Street, and then that kind of overtook it. But anyway, I see what Will Ferrell can do. That's why stuff like this aggravates me. I've seen what Amy Poehler can do. I've seen what Amy Poehler can do. And I think Amy Poehler's got a really great career. With Will Ferrell, it's like we've hit the ceiling. You know what I mean? And right now, you're getting like Adam Sandler level laziness out of this guy.
No,
yes,
come on.
You are.
Don't.
You are getting.
No.
I honestly, I'll tell you right now, if at this current juncture, and I have given more positive reviews to Will Ferrell movies than Adam Sandler movies. I have. At this current juncture, if I hear the phrase Adam Sandler's made a new movie and Will Ferrell's made a new movie, I would say I would go as far as to read the plot of the Adam Sandler movie and I would at this current point be more interested in it. I would.
What?
Yep. Absolutely.
What?
Will Ferrell has not shown me anything this decade, really, aside from The Other Guys. That's about it. And this is borderline Drek. This is borderline Drek, especially given that, like I said, I harp on movies like this. When they're bad, I call them out because I see the potential, especially with Andrew J. Cohen, like I said, with writing. He also wrote Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. I don't know if you saw that last summer. It's about a year ago it came out. I've seen the potential of Cohen. I've seen the potential of Ferrell. I've seen the potential of Poehler. Mantzoukas is still fairly new. He's still got a little bit to prove, I think. And this film doesn't do anything for anybody. And it's gonna be as quickly forgotten as probably as quickly as it was written.
I will agree with that.